The world is saved. The living room's dark save for light being cast from the big TV screen and the imminent sunrise that's teasing the one starry sky with whispers of morning.
George, how are you?
Pretty good. How about yourself?
I'm good. I got to live a whole part of my childhood over again playing this game.
Yeah. I feel like from our conversation last time and like on the last episode, that this is going to be much more of a heartbreaking experience for you than for me. Because like I was like, I don't know, man. I think this is going to be pretty awful. And you're like, nah, it'll be fine. And I don't know about your experience, but mine was at or near expectations.
Mine was also at or near expectations. We just had really, really different expectations. So what did we play this time? We played Sonic 2 for the Sega Genesis, or if we have any international folks, the Mega Drive. Yeah, you didn't even know that, did you?
Nope, did not know that was a thing at all. Like,
yeah. Yeah, I don't know what it is about other English-speaking countries, but when something is sent overseas, and in this case I specifically mean Europe, they usually like just screw, and they still do this, right? This wasn't just an artifact of the old days. Like they still are like, oh, instead of, the Sega Genesis, we'll call it the Sega Mega Drive. And in some cases there's a good reason, but I don't think they have like a negative connotation with the word Genesis. But anyway, so
well, no, I mean it's probably just the metric system, it's like a Royale with cheese, like like they got the metric system. They don't know what a Genesis is.
It's totally possible. Originally released November 24th, 1992, 6 million copies sold, which is, it's not nothing, but it's not like Super Mario World numbers.
Yeah, I mean, it's 6 million, so that would mean like that's one for every 1,000 people on the face of the planet. Is that about right?
Is that how you measure things? That's your yardstick for success.
Yeah, no, I mean, especially when you get into numbers that high, because when people are like, oh man, I love my wife, she's 1 in a million. Like, there's 7,000 other people like her in the world. That's pretty insulting, dude.
Or, I mean, if you don't want to be so damn negative about it, you could be like, only 7,000. That's incredible. So if she dies, you only have 6,999 nearly identical copies to replace them with.
Yeah, no, it's like surrogates. You're like, all right, roll out the next one,
Yeah. I'd like to believe that each one is like slightly different, though. Like they're bespoke, nearly identical copies. So they're not made through like a mass factory process, but there's like really talented artisans creating clones of us all over. Because there's only like, 1 million people in the world. So then they just make copies of them.
Yeah, no, I like that idea, and especially like the idea of being able to conglomerate them all in one place, because then I feel that you would be a lot more flippant with what would cause you to murder your spouse, because like you're like, well, this iteration has something really slightly wrong with the eyes. I don't like it. I'm going to send it back, and it's like, well, that's not. They're people,
yeah, they're people.
Right?
This got incredibly heavy, incredibly fast.
Yeah, right. So Sonic.
Sonic 2 specifically. So I was thinking about this, and I had Sonic 1 and I had Sonic 2, and I had friends who had Sonic 3 and Sonic and Knuckles, so I had access to the whole suite of Genesis games. But I don't know, man, something about Sonic 2, like that was the one I always went back to. Like if I was going to sit down and play Sonic for 20 minutes or something before school started or before dinner or whatever, like I didn't go for the others. I always reached for Sonic 2, and I'm kind of getting the feeling that was not your go-to thing.
No, it was I played Sonic like crazy because I actually being a like having my mom and dad who were divorced, right? I actually had an SNES at my mom's house and a Genesis at my dad's. So like I actually did have access to all of the system, all of the games, and all that sort of stuff. But yeah, it just it was not my go-to. I think Mario World was generally like my go-to time killer kind of a thing. But I mean, like I definitely, but I do remember playing it a lot and really enjoying it. Like there was no point where I was like, like, oh man, this game's terrible, any more so than I was with like any other game, you know, like
as you embed the controller in the drywall in frustration.
Yeah, where you're like, oh, this game totally cheated because, you know, like, and you kind of like personify the game a little bit, you know, and you're just kind of like, the game doesn't like me, you know, and you're like, well,
this game is racist.
Yeah, all that racism against us white males, man. Like, it's just, it's
tragic. So I was in fairness to games of that generation, though, I will say that I noticed a lot more glitches in this than I remember, and they're not typically game breaking, but they're usually either hilarious or terrifying. For example, Sonic, if you collect all the Chaos Emeralds, all 7 of them, can turn into Super Sonic, and Tails does not get your buffs when you turn into Super Sonic. So you're constantly leaving him to the point where the computer takes over and like magically makes him catch up to you. But you're able to then accelerate so fast that you can like break the universe while he's trying to magically catch back up to you. So there were a few times where he like was caught in this like running loop where he was like floating just a little bit above the ground, like strolling in place, or
nice.
Or stuck in his like ball form with the tail straight up. So like, oh, he was falling the last time he tried to catch up to me, and now this is just his life.
It's like horrible purgative environment, you know. But
yeah.
I do think it speaks to Tails as like a character, because, you know, Sonic has to harness the power of, I'm guessing, like ancient magics or whatever the Chaos Emeralds like are.
I mean,
you know,
they have chaos right in the name, so I'm gonna assume elder gods.
Yeah, like we're talking like some like old school Cthulhu stuff, right? So Sonic has to harness Cthulhu magic in order to move that fast, and Tails somehow, while still encapsulated in his ball, is able to like keep pace with him, you know, and but the thing is that like Tails isn't always that fast, right? So it really makes you think that like the only thing holding Tails back is his belief that he should be slower than Sonic, you know?
Well, I mean, he just idolizes the guy.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, he's got cool shoes and like an edgy 90s attitude.
Oh, dude, the edginess of his attitude, man. Like I remember at one point, like I put the controller down and I went to like go get some food, and like I came back and Sonic's like giving me the business. And I'm like, I am one controller button away from ending your life, man. Like, you know, like he was just like just staring daggers at me, like you want to do something, bro? Like you're wasting my time. And I'm like, oh, whoa.
And this is something I noticed is I can't think of anything in when we played through Super Mario World that I looked at it and I was like, oh, that was a distinctly 90s American thing to do. But Sonic, which I mean is still a Japanese game from a Japanese game company, was very much written to appeal to like a 90s edgy, like preteen and teen kind of aesthetic. 3 seconds is how long you have to not touch the controls before he like starts checking his not watch, because he doesn't have a watch. and he's kind of like gesturing. And then about 14 to 15 seconds later is when he lays down and just angrily stares at the camera until you touch the controls, which made me remember, and I actually looked this up on YouTube to confirm, in Sonic CD, which was from, you know, the failed Sega CD expansion thing, at like 2.5 minutes, he would actually like throw his arms up in disgust and jump out of the universe and kill you. Like it actually cost you a life.
So he would literally become so fed up with your nonsense that he would end his own life.
Yes. The thought of waiting on you for 2 minutes and 31 seconds was literally a fate worse than death. So he chose the sweet release of death.
I mean, obviously I don't actually want this, but I think it would be amazing to see like in an office setting, like a human that was like that, you know, where like, you know, like somebody like walks into your office and you're like, hey, give me one second real fast. Let me just finish up this email. And then like after 3 seconds, you know, like they immediately like start like looking at their watch and being like, come on, man. And you're like, okay, well this is like rude, but whatever. And then like after like 2 minutes, you know, they just go like, whatever, and then they just like throw themselves into the floor, And you're like, I can't, this unprofessional, just unprofessional Sonic.
As long as they didn't actually kill themselves, I think it'd be funny to see them reduced to like a groveling pile. Like, I can't wait anymore.
I just need you to sign these memos.
So let's talk about the visuals first. So what did you think about them graphics? Them sweet 16-bit graphics.
Oh man, they were beautiful. No, actually, I thought the visuals held up pretty well. I thought that they were on par with Mario World. I thought that they were a little bit grittier. I think like there was like more like shading, but I think that was more in keeping with the tone of the game. Like
everything's definitely darker too. Like still bright and colorful, but less crayon colorful.
Yeah, less like here are our primary colors now. Now all the primary,
that's all you get. Those colors.
Yes, you get those three and just deal with that. Yeah, exactly. No, I would agree with that. I think that some of the visuals were interesting because like it. So one of the main differences between Sonic and Super Mario World is the gotta go fast, right? So like the whole thing is like you gotta go fast, right? So I thought that sometimes I was a little bit like visually overwhelmed just because there were so many things flying past me so quickly. So I was just kind of like, especially in the I think it's the second stage, the one that's like the chemical wasteland.
Chemical plant.
Yeah, the chemical plant one where I was just kind of like, oh my god, whoa, like where just like so much was happening. I was just kind of like on like visual overload, and I did feel that sometimes detracted from the gameplay because it was so confusing that I wasn't really sure exactly like what I needed to be paying attention to, so I didn't like die,
And so I don't think you can really separate the visuals in this from the controls and the mechanics because I feel like the first level, the Emerald Hill Zone, is all about teaching you, yes, this is a platformer, but there are certain things that will be dependent on how fast you're moving. Because there's like the spirally thing where like you kind of like do it. It's like a corkscrew, I guess. Not the loop, but the corkscrew thing. And if you don't go through that at a high enough speed, you just fall down, sometimes to your death, but you just, to whatever's below it. And so it's kind of the game's way of saying like, hey, being timid and cautiously approaching things is like not really what you're doing here.
Yeah.
And then in Chemical Plant, there's several times in those two acts where you can easily outrun the camera. And it's only for like a second or two, but if you like hit the little accelerator thing and then you like flip around the loop and like you can easily outrun the camera and then you usually crash into something that brings you to a grinding halt.
Yes, that would have liquefied your hedgehoggy body.
Yes, into just a puddle of blue. But I feel like what that level's teaching you is sometimes you're going to be moving so fast that pretty much just don't touch the controls because And it's like a weird thing to teach the player. Like sometimes the level design is sort of on rails and maybe just don't do anything. Yeah.
And I would definitely agree with that. And I think that there were a number of times, and we can touch about this more a little bit later with game design, but where, like I said, like the visual cues were not as sharp as they were in Mario World. And of course, unfortunately, we're going to predominantly compare this to the last platformer we played, which is, is it fair to compare a game to Super Mario World? Nope. But like here we go. But is it like there were a lot of places where like the visuals they weren't stark or stunning enough for me to know like, hey, this is something that should draw my attention and I should become immediately aware of, Yeah. So there were like a couple of times, and actually I pointed it out to Megan while I was playing, and I just said, you see, Mario wouldn't have done this, I was going fast as you're wont to do with a Sonic game, right? And it was in the Emerald Hill, the first
level. One, Emerald Hill, yeah.
Yeah. And so I'm like going fast and I go over a bridge and I just get slammed into by one of those piranhas, right? And there was just nothing to key me up or to warn me that that's something I should be aware of other than just the act of getting hit, So like there was nothing to say like something colorful that would like draw your eye or anything like that. It was just like more level, and then like the thing popped up and got me. And I was like, you see, I feel like Mario would like have some kind of a visual cue to like let you know like, hey, this is going to be like a thing that you should like cue into,
Yeah. And okay, so I remind me, because I have a thing about gameplay and mechanics. But
Okay.
the one other thing with the visuals that I found particularly striking, because if I recall correctly, and I could look this up, but I can't be bothered. If I recall correctly, the Genesis was actually slightly more powerful hardware than the Super Nintendo. And one of the places I feel like that shows is in like from basically the very first act of Emerald Hill Zone starts. Like everything is friggin' moving all the time. Like there's friggin' flowers that spin. There's like one of the later levels has a constant stream of clouds moving at like 1,000 miles an hour in the background. There's lava glowing, and there's just crap like when I got to the casino nights or whatever it is.
Yes.
Like I was like, how was I not constantly having seizures as like a 12-year-old playing through, like just everything's blinking and spinning and spinning and blinking in the background. And then there's other crap blinking and spinning in the foreground. And then Sonic's moving and there's enemies. And like when you first start the stage, the rings thing is flashing at you because you have 0 rings. I was just like, Jesus Christ, just everybody calm down.
Yeah, I definitely think that this was a great litmus test for whether or not you had epilepsy as a kid. Like you if you got through if you could walk up to someone and you're like, oh hey, did you ever beat Sonic versus Sonic and Tails? And they said yes. It's like, well then you don't have epilepsy. Like, yes. But
you must be fine. Good on you.
Especially the casino one. I just remember kind of like being like, this is like if somebody, like, it's like the visuals are very, like they're very stimulating, but this is very much so like when somebody's like, man, this creme brulee needs a little bit more, like 5 gallons of sugar, like
I'm gonna put a pie on top of it.
Exactly. Yes. Creme pie brulee, like it's so are they good? Yes. I definitely think that they hold up. They are what I was like expecting. But I would say that the pendulum was starting to swing in the direction of too much. Like if they kept going in that direction, like it'd be like some of those Japanese game shows where it's like super happy, fun, awesome time, and it's like
yes.
just like a bit much.
Yeah, some of those actually do cause seizures in epileptic people. I will say the Casino Zone with its fast moving nonsense does have one of the funniest glitches because it's another level where it's very, very easy to outrun the camera, especially if you build up momentum by like bouncing off of it's kind of like slot machine. And then you hit, I don't know why, but there's like 3 or 4 places in the levels that are like a small embankment at like a 20-degree grade going down. And if you hit that and you are spinning, which of course you are spinning because you were just up in the big crazy machine thing, then all of your momentum immediately gets arrested, but you don't actually stop moving. And then all of a sudden you shoot forward like 3 feet and then you stop. And then you like shoot forward like 3 feet and then you stop. And it's so visually jarring for like, you're flying around and then you come to this grinding halt, but like the level is still pulsing around you and everything's like glowing and flashing. And then you like, and like limp forward a little bit. And because you're like trapped in the roll, you can't get out of that nonsense until there's something to put your feet on again. Like it's really bizarre. And it happens to be in the most like visually jarring stage in the entire game.
Oh yeah. No, actually one similar thing that, happened when I was playing was, I think it's in like the zone after the casino one, and where basically like they have like 2 springs in like a small pit like facing each other.
Oh, so you get stuck.
Yeah, it was just like bam, 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 bam. And I was just kind of like, oh god, what's happening? Like make it stop. So I jumped out and I jumped in the wrong direction, because like either you have to be like expert timing or it's just you just keep rolling the dice until you get it right, And so like I jumped out and like I remember like walking up to it and being like, I don't want to do this again, like don't do this to me, game. And I was like, no, I'll jump over it. I'll totally jump over it. And then I didn't. I got stuck in it again. And I was like, oh.
I asked you not to do this to me.
I wanted one thing, which was to not like get motion sick. But yeah, like I said, overall though, I think that they hold up. And I mean, like, considering some games I've seen from back in the day, where the visuals are so confusing that you don't even know what you're supposed to be doing, I at no point felt lost, you know?
Yeah. This is a small thing, but I can't think of any place in the game where anything is Sonic blue or Tails orange. There are things that are blue and there are things that are orange, but generally speaking, you can look at the screen and pick out where Sonic is. And even if you can't see him, he has bright white eyes in the middle of his face and bright red shoes. So like there's distinguishing characteristics, which, you know, in a game where you gotta go fast, it's nice to be able to know where your avatar is.
Absolutely. And as we said, you know, if you lose him for more than 3 seconds, all you have to do is for the thing looking at you directly and becoming increasingly impatient.
So angry. So what about the music?
The music, I thought, I don't think it was like as iconic as Mario, obviously. But you know, I thought that the music was very, very good. I enjoyed it. I will tell you the one music cue or sound cue that we can't talk about Sonic and not talk about is when I started to drown, I had a near panic attack because that's deeply ingrained, you know,
that came, not only did that come rushing back, but when I was in an area where I had to get out and I knew, I was like, I've been underwater just long enough that this is about to start. Brace yourself. And then when it started, like, I felt my heart speed up and I was like, I even knew it was coming. Like, I'm an adult.
So Megan was like reading behind me, which means that, you know, like she would occasionally like look up and see it. And so like, yeah, I think it was in the industrial zone. I'm never going to remember the name of that, apparently. Anyways, the you know, the Superfund site. So anyways, I was at the Superfund site. And yeah, and so like I remember being underwater and like hearing like the bells, and I was like, okay. And I remember thinking like, it's gonna come, it's gonna happen. And I remembered something that I learned actually from Star Trek, which was, you know, look, you're either going to die or you're not. but you really have to just stay like serial killer calm when that music starts, because if you start to panic and like try to get out of there like faster than you should, you'll miss your jump and then you will die, you know? So I just remember being like dun 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 dun, and Megan's just kind of like, are you gonna get out? I'm like, I just gotta be calm, man. It's fine.
Honey, it's fine.
And so I got out and I was like, oh god, oh thank God, you know? It's like once the like danger is gone, like then you can panic, you know? But yeah, so that music cue I think is definitely, I guess, holds up in the sense that it still causes intense dread and panic.
Well, I assume when the composer sat down, they were like, how can I make this stick with people like literally always?
Like I think that honestly, if I was like walking, if somebody had like that set as their ringtone, which I think actually now I gotta do this. But, like if somebody had that set as like their notification or their ringtone, like, so I'm just like walking along and all of a sudden I'm like in like a gap and I hear like dun 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 dun. I'm just like I'd have to find the source of that noise.
Some stranger is gonna grab you like by the collar and be like, answer it, for the love of God, answer the phone.
I feel like I'm drowning. Yeah.
So yeah. I will throw another nod to good level design though, which is in Chemical Plant in Super Fun Time Zone. That spot where that happens, unless you know exactly what to do before the blocks are even on screen, I think you have to be underwater long enough that the panic music starts. So it's like, hey, drowning is a thing in this game.
Yeah.
This Mario, this is not.
Yes, and I do think that even then the audio cues are on point with that, because like you're underwater, it's totally cool, whatever, and you hear like this like ding, and you're like, what was that? You know?
Huh,
yeah,
that sounded like a timer.
Yeah, whatever. And then like ding, and you're like, feel like I should be doing something about this. And then once you get a countdown timer on the screen and the blood panic music, like if that hasn't cued you in that, you know, you need to do something about the situation immediately, then I don't think you should have a car.
Yeah, probably not. Yeah, if that much alarm bells doesn't indicate what the problem is, that's why office buildings in some states have to have like a fire marshal, so that when the fire alarm goes off, it's actually their job to walk around the floor and make sure everybody has left. Because it's like you find Jim from accounting and you're like, Jim, the building is burning down. The spreadsheets can wait. And it's like, no, it's probably just a false alarm. And it's like, didn't you see us all leaving? Don't you smell the smoke? And it's like, no, I'm sure it's fine. It goes off all the time. And it's like, okay, I guess die in a fire. I guess I don't know.
Literally, like you're gonna die. And also too, it's like, it's like, oh, it's probably just a false alarm. It's like risk to reward. Like
seriously, close your laptop and let's go.
Yeah, just like take a look around. Are you the only one left? Yeah, maybe follow up on that a little bit.
So I will say for the music that as much 8 and 16-bit music as I have deeply, deeply burned into my psyche, I don't think there was a single piece of music in this game that I didn't immediately recognize, and more importantly, couldn't think of times in the last 3 months I was humming out loud. Like it was kind of almost shocking to me. Like, oh, I do sing this all the time. And there were a couple levels where I actually leaned, same kind of thing, Sue behind me on the couch reading a book or doing a puzzle or something, and I would turn around and be like, this is that song I'm whistling all the time.
Yeah, I don't think that the music stuck with me quite to that degree. I definitely think that all the music was very in keeping, because I think with these levels, there's much more difference in each level's aesthetic than there is in Mario,
yeah, it's not a cohesive world in any way.
Yeah, no, it's just kind of and it'd actually be kind of interesting to draw a map layout, assuming that Sonic went linearly from wherever he started to the end, right? So it's so there's this nice plains area, or probably more like a plateau, but it's nice, fun, foresty, whatever. And then, it's like, oh, okay. And then clearly the industrial plant that has been given birth to, which is then right next to a casino, which I guess I could see, maybe that's all the waste and runoff from the casino,
Yeah, you're starting to make me think that maybe there's a small amount of through line to this.
But no, I definitely thought that all of the music was in keeping with the level. There wasn't, in the chemical one, it had that very kind of industrial kind of feel. And I definitely feel like it enhanced the visuals in that sense. I will say, though, that, like I said, the drowning music and the music for when you're trying to get you some of those sweet, sweet Chaos Emeralds.
The special zone music?
Yes, the special zone music. That is, I don't want to say but that I recognized immediately, Mostly probably because I remember, it's nuh-uh, you had one ring left to get before you get that sexy 7th Chaos Emerald. I'm like,
God, and it does the screw you
yeah.
You're just
yeah, hey, I know you're feeling bad about yourself. Feel a little worse,
Yeah, with the big thumbs down.
Yeah. Which was basically a middle finger. It was just a big giant middle finger.
Pretty much. And it's a big white glove. So it's is this another fourth wall break? Is Sonic looking at me and being like, nope?
Yep. Yeah, no, yeah. Is it basically he's just kind of I could do this better, it's emo Sonic, So he's like, well, I could do this better if I wanted to, but I'm just letting you control me, And
I just don't want to. So speaking of controls, beautiful segue.
Yeah, there you go.
I feel like the most underutilized button in a lot of platformers is the down on the D-pad. Sonic does not have that problem because running at 1,000 miles an hour to the point where you are literally going outside the view of the camera, the only way to survive that most of the time is to be holding down so that you're rolling, so that if you do collide with something, you might kill it.
Right. Yeah, no, I would definitely agree with that. Being able to pull into the ball spin, I think that was very tight. I think, though, speaking of the going so fast that you are literally shattering the God camera's ability to keep up with you, I thought that was something that that the game, I don't want to say struggled with, but having that kind of speed, it then makes it difficult to blunt your momentum if you do happen to see something that is going to be a problem, So there would be a lot of times where I'd be running and I'd come to like the edge of something. I'm like, no, and it like hold back as hard as I could on the thing to like stop. But it was like, nah, man, you're going like a billion miles an hour. Like I could hear Sonic's like tendons like cracking as like he desperately tried to like come to a halt. But I was like, no, the die has been cast. The bullets left the chamber. I am just on board for this.
Well, the odds of it ever happening have got to be like approaching zero. But one of the big differences between Sonic and some of the other unnamed platformers of the day are when you're like right on the edge of something, you kind of like freak out like you're going to fall. And then if you are facing the other direction, so like if you have your back to the ledge, you kind of do a different like, oh my God, I'm going to fall motion.
Right.
And I would love to think that there are times in the game where the level design would make it such that you would slam on the brakes and pull right to an edge like that, and then do the little cartoony animation. But I mean, there's just no way. Like there's no way you would, because there's nothing that actually stops you like right at the ledge. Like you just either pull right over, or because you're holding back, the second you stop moving forward, you just immediately start moving backwards.
Right.
So,
no,
so
if that did
no
happen,
like
that would
sliding.
Be like, yeah, if that did happen, that would be like something that you would tell your children, and they would tell their children. Like the one time this happened in a Sonic game. So I thought that was kind of something, and I felt that the platforming was not. It was good. It was not as tight as Mario. Like especially your mid-air control, I thought was a little bit looser. So like if I jumped in a direction, and then like I was like, oh no, I kind of like overgauged that, so I'm like pulling back. Like I didn't have quite as much mid-air control as I did in Mario.
See, I feel, and maybe this is based on the way I play Mario games, but one of the biggest differences between the controls in most platformers, but I mean Mario in particular and Sonic, is where's the run button in Sonic? Nope.
Right.
So you're always running, which makes the way you respond in midair different. And more importantly, there's only one way. Like when you press back in midair, you respond the same way, whether you were at a dead stop or you were moving forward. Whereas with Mario, if you are running and your run momentum like carries into the way he controls in the air. Whereas if you're not running, it's like a little bit more sluggish. So I actually found with Sonic, I was frequently kind of moving in like a super ungraceful, where like I would jump toward a platform and then I was afraid I was going to overshoot it. So I'd like start to arrest my momentum, and then I would like undershoot it, and then I would like add momentum back in. So I'm like drawing these ridiculous zigzags in the air, and it's like, that doesn't even look like that. That's not believable.
That's not something that winning hedgehogs do, like that's not a recipe for success. Yeah, I definitely feel that was an issue that I struggled with a lot, especially in the waste runoff zone.
See, it's funny because there is actually the oil zone.
Oh yeah,
not that
oil
one. Ocean.
Yeah, no.
But then there's also a chemical plant.
This is all hazardous, volatile, and semi-volatile chemicals. like horrible extracts and stuff. Anyways, but when I was in that one, we're like there's yeah, well, I'll come back to that. But anyway, so like I was in like one area of the level where there were two platforms that like come together and touch and then move away, and I had to get from platform A to platform B, and I screwed that up, I think, at least half a dozen times, and I was just starting to get frustrated because and I was just kind of like, I should be able to do this, but this is not the hero's journey at this point. Like, this is not like, this is a part of the story that like gets left out, where it's like, and then Sonic spent 5 minutes trying to do the most mundane of tasks, So yeah, like that was something.
And we can't possibly talk about the controls without talking about Supersonic's controls. So were you able to get all of the Chaos Emeralds?
No, I wasn't. And in fact, because here's what happened was I got like into the first, thing, and it was like, you lost. And I was like, whatever, so I tried again.
I don't even care.
Yeah. I was like, I don't need no Chaos Emeralds. I did it again. Right. And two things happened. One is I got within one ring of getting the Chaos Emerald and then got the thumbs down, you stink. And I was like, if I'm struggling this much on the first level, the chances of me getting all 7, because I remember it getting like increasingly difficult, you know?
Oh, yes.
So I was just kind of like, there's no way I'm going to actually get it. But I was like, but you know, whatever. It's a fun little mini game. But then I remembered the other thing that I'm not sure I agree with as a game mechanic, which is that it robs you of all of your rings when you come back to the real world. So I promptly died right after failing to get the Chaos Emerald. And I was like, yeah, I'm not going to try anymore. Like, I'm not, this is an avenue that is off limits to me.
That's fair. So, you know, this game being my childhood gem and all, I was like, I have to make an effort, right?
Yeah.
And so I think I got through the first 4 of them on the first try. And then like the
Nice.
5th one, I think I had to do 2 times. And then the 6th one I had to do like 4 times. And then the 7th one I had to do like way too many times. and the thing that I forgot until I got to the 7th one, and it's like one of those things that I knew instinctively and I just hadn't really rehashed it while I angrily like punched the controller, was the like 5th, 6th, and 7th stage. There are blind corners around which bombs come. So you cannot possibly react to a visual cue because there isn't one.
Intentionally so.
Yeah, so you have to actually just memorize the stage. And of course, by this point, I'm like angrily explaining this to Susan. And she's like, so then how do you do that? You just have to memorize it? And I was like, yes, which is bullshit.
Yeah, no, there were definitely a number of areas in the game. Especially, like I said, like I struggled. You know, it's just kind of like if somebody like, you know, hands you like a you know, hop on pop, and you're like, I don't know if I can really like follow this. It's like, well, if you want to hang, you're eventually going to have to read Atlas Shrugged and be like, I'm not even going to try hop on pop. I'm done. You know, like I knew that I was so starkly out of my depth. But that actually does speak to one of the places where I got very, very, very frustrated on a couple of times, and I paused it and turned to Megan and said, nope, you see, this is garbage. Is there are definitely absolutely times when the game just straight up checks you just to remind you that it's the game and you are but a player. You are its pawn. You know, you control Sonic and it controls you. But like I remember the one that I thought was the most frustrating was it was in the underground mine tunnel one.
Yeah, I don't remember the name of that one, so you're good to go.
Sweet. So in
underground
the
super fun land,
mine, which is interesting because like there's a lot of forest in this mine, but whatever. So you know,
oh, that one. Yeah, crap. What is that called? Go on.
The forest mine.
Yeah, the forest mine. Obviously.
Duh. Anyway, so you know, there are those little like vines that hang down that you jump onto and grab, and it pulls down and then it releases, you know, like the platform underneath you, right?
Yes, a mechanic I think you see 0 other times.
Yes, no, it is here. It is a single difference in kind, and then like it just goes away forever, and you're like, fine, whatever. So that's fine. You know, I think the visual cues were good enough on that where it's like, this looks different. I'm going to see how I interact with it, and I did. And so at one point, like I'm like jamming around. I've got 0 rings, you know, so I'm like, all right, gotta keep on the eye out, look out for rings. And so I jumped up and grabbed the thing, and then because it's right up on the roof from behind the roof, right? So definitely couldn't see it. Like one of those flashlight bug things comes and just murders me. And I say murders because he didn't like kill me. There was no like struggle. Like he just came out and just iced me, you know, like a drug deal gone bad, you know? And so like, and I remember because like when you die, right, it pauses the screen, you know, shows you like what it was. And so I paused the game and I got Megan's attention. I'm like, you see that? You see the bug thing that's literally right on the thing that they're telling me to hold on to? That's garbage. Like that is just, I did everything right. You know, like the game taught me to do this and then killed me for it, you know, like, and so I was disproportionately upset about that particular loss of life.
No, that level I think is probably the buggiest forest mine. I mean, which goes to show like what is all this forest doing down here? So like I think that's probably the buggiest level. Not necessarily the most frustrating level, but it's the level where when you die, you're most likely to be like, well, the game cheated, right?
Yes.
Because there's there's like spikes that just like emerge from the wall,
No,
and
right?
you have like about 2 frames where you can see them, and I think in some defense of Sonic's level design, not just here but in a lot of places, is your rings are recoverable,
Right.
which means and you only have to have one to not die. So if you do something stupid or the game does something that seems like it's unfair, then as long as you don't die, but you just lose all your rings and you get like a single ring back, you're like, well, I guess I learned my lesson. And you can tell that there are certain things they designed in the levels with that in mind.
Yes.
That being said, at the end of Act 2 of Forest Mine, the last save thing, I have no idea what those things are called. The little stop.
Oh yeah, the portals to the Chaos Emerald prisons.
Those prisons.
I assume that they were imprisoned. Anyways, but
yeah, I think they're like sentient items in D&D. Like they just do what they want. So you hit that thing, and then you go down a short little walkway, and you fight the boss. And I mean, he's a neither here nor there boss. It's fine. He's got a little drill, and or 2 drills actually. He like goes up and down. And then if you die and you go back to that save continue point, there are no rings that you can get to before you have to fight Robotnik again. Which means if you couldn't do it the first time, your only option now is perfection.
Right. Yeah. Like you can screw this up nuns times and that is one of the things that's like you said is interesting is that like if you have rings, the mechanics, the skill challenge is completely different because if you like you said if you even have one ring, you can literally get hit an infinite number of times so long as you keep recovering that ring. Right. Yep. If you have no rings, you can get hit 0 times. And that's kind of like weird. And I think that overall the game tries to leverage that. And I did like, at first I was like blind angry with like the nth thing that I thought was like not okay that it killed me. Right. But then I realized I was like, well, the difference between this and Mario is that Mario, there's like maybe 3 or 4 power-ups in the entire level. So that means you can only get hit 3 or 4 times, Whereas with Sonic, you can theoretically get hit an infinite number of times. But then, and I don't know if this is just me defending my rage or actually like a legitimate thought, but I was like, whether or not the game is more punishing or less punishing, an unfair death still never feels good,
No.
or being popped for a reason. Like, even though it's like, well, it didn't kill me, I still didn't like it though. So, that.
Yeah, and in those instances where it's like the piranha in like World 1, like World 1, sorry, Sonic, in Emerald Hill Zone.
It's like calling your girlfriend by your ex's name, Like,
I'm sorry, baby. I saw her on Facebook earlier. That was all. So you're running and you have not yet learned how to like jump and attack, or that the roll essentially makes you immortal in most cases. And so you get hit by the piranha thing, which comes seemingly out of nowhere. Mm-hmm. And there's an argument to be made that from a design perspective, it's like, well, we really wanted you to get hit. So that's why we took a cheap shot. But then by like the, 8th or 9th zone, when you get hit with a cheap shot, you're like, I get it.
Yeah. I get it. Like, I mean, it's like, and being an only child, but from what I've heard, like having like an older brother that occasionally just like hits you up the back of the head and is just like, just so you know. And it's like, no, I get it. Like,
yeah. No, the first time, still remember it. Thanks.
Yeah. No. And so speaking of undeserving deaths, like there were a couple of times when I died where I was just kind of like, right. So, like, one of them was in the Casino Royale game, right?
Close enough.
So, is where you like it has like those like giant blue moving block platforms, which I remember from being in Vegas. Those being around.
Yeah,
right?
They're all over, and I mean, you could see people getting crushed to death. It was kind of terrible.
But that's how you know people who like really know Vegas and people who are just like the tourists, because they get crushed to death.
Go back to your town.
But anyways, yeah. And so like, it was like moving and I was standing on the edge of it, but apparently I was just enough on the edge that I clipped the side, and it crushed me to death, instead of just shunting me like that centimeter away, like would actually happen if you were like moving and it'd just be like, oh, ow. It was like, nope, crushed to death. I was just like, what the? Oh, yeah, fine, whatever, like.
Yeah, I mean, this is an artifact of all games technically have a hitbox of some kind, but I mean, on older games, your hitbox is like literally a box. So if you cross that threshold by a single pixel, unless they specifically programmed like a gray area of survival, you're going to die in what visually seems to make no sense.
Yeah. I mean, like I said, like with that one, I was just kind of like, yeah, no, I get it. Like, fine, whatever. Like that happened, but then what made me like rage quit and then actually go play another video game for a little bit to like detox was like I died. I thought the difficulty curve was a little off because I died 0 times in Green Hill Zone, and then I died 3 times in Chemical Wasteland, right? And I didn't get a whole lot of extra lives, so now I'm like going through with like 1 life left, right? And I'm like, I don't think I can finish the game with 1 life, right? So I didn't. I died again, and then it said continue, and I was like, that's cool. That's legit because like if it's like your real punishment is that you have to do Act 1 and 2, I was like, that's fine. I'll muscle through. And then I died. So I started playing a little bit looser, and then I died a couple more times. And then this time it said game over forever, die in a fire. And I was like, huh?
Yeah,
like,
you got a set number of continues, buddy.
Yeah, right. And I didn't feel like that was like, clear, or at least I wasn't paying close enough attention to notice it, that you have a limited number of continues, so I was just kind of like, so it was like, nope, go back to level 1. And then I was like, all right, fine. And then I got hit by a piranha again. And I was like, yeah, I need a minute. just give me a second, so like, yeah, that was just something that I thought was like frustrating was it's, like, let me phrase that, it's punishing,
Yes.
Is that like, the place where I was struggling, I now have to get through all of this other stuff again just to get a crack at it, and that wasn't fun.
And we've been kind of tiptoeing around level design and game design, but the lack of a true like save mechanic. I mean, granted, Sonic 2 is like noticeably shorter than, say, Super Mario World.
Yes.
So I mean, there's an argument to be made that, because like I beat it and lots of kids beat it and it can be beaten, that the game is a proper length to not require a save. But I feel like that was at a time in history when it was like, well, we don't really need a save mechanic. But going back now, it's like, oh dear God.
Yeah.
You're telling me like if I just want to sit down for 5 minutes and play like, Casino Dumpster Fire Zone, like I have to beat the first 2 places first. And I mean, yeah, there's like the level select cheat code, and I did screw around with that a little after I beat the game, but I was just kind of like, yeah, I kind of just want to be able to save.
Yeah, no, I would definitely agree with that. And I think that that basically, like it is if you want to like you said, like play a certain level or do that, then he's like, oh, I've got to slog through all of this other stuff. And also too, one of the things I noticed is that the levels are highly stratified in that, like, I would be like going fast and I would like fire across like a ledge, and I would just see briefly that there is stuff both above and below me that is worth exploring that is now off limits to me because I have like fired way past it, right? So I would definitely say that gives the game a lot more replayability, because then you can go back and like explore areas of a world that you didn't, get to the first time. But then that's also frustrating because if you really want to explore not Green Hill Zone, you got to get through Green Hill Zone,
Yeah. It's Green Hill Zone is Sonic 1. Emerald Hill Zone is Sonic. Yeah. We upgraded.
Oh yeah, no, that's them $10 words, man. Like, oh my stars and garters.
So I feel like the best zone that exemplifies the, hey, there's other ways you can get from point A to point B is the chemical plant. But it's kind of the path I took every single time I played that level was the same one, because it's the one that you're most likely to like trip and roll down.
Right.
And then once you get moving, like you're friggin' hauling. Like there's no other place in the game where you are as likely to outrun the camera as in that level.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
It's just like, am I really gonna start the game over to go see what that other loop looks like? No.
No.
Not,
it will
I'm
just,
not.
as far as I'm concerned, it just has like, 15 boxes, all invincibilities and like rings, and it's just made out of like happiness and like, like there's
total party.
Yeah, there's like nice looking female hedgehogs and like whatever, but you know what? I'm not gonna. It's fine. It's effectively dead to me. And speaking of this harkens back to visual cues a little bit, but is the invincibility mechanic. I don't feel that it does an amazing job letting you know when it's about to run out, because
it tells you nothing.
Yeah, it just
stops.
Yeah, as opposed to like with Mario, where like there's like you're like all glowing and stardusty and whatever, and then like the stardust goes away, and then the glow slows down, and it's only like a couple of seconds, but it's letting you know like, hey, this party's about to come to a close.
Quit walking on lava.
And speaking of walking on lava, I was flouting the game's mechanics as I was like, I'm invincible. I'm walking on lava. No big. Oh my God, I'm dying. And like, and so then in true throwing good money after bad fashion, I was like, well, I've now been hit, so I have to continue to run on lava to collect rings. And so I was in this weird purgative state of like running on lava and getting hit and trying to collect rings. And I was just like in like this like bizarre panic mode. And I was just kind of like, yeah, man, if I had just gotten like a little bit of a heads up, like, hey, your invincibility cocaine party is about to come to a crashing close, I wouldn't be in this situation.
Well, for just a minute, you got to feel what it was like to be dangerously addicted to gambling. Because you're on the lava, you lose all your rings, and then you grab like a few back and you're like, no, I can fix this. And then you take damage again and you lose all your rings, but you don't get as many back as you got the first time.
Yeah, but you're like, this time, like, and with the gambling, I actually in the casino zone, like I was like, oh, I remember this. And I jumped in and it was like, haha, you got Robotniked. And I was like, whatever. So I jumped back in again. It's like, well, you got tails this time. So, here's a little bit of money. And I was like, I'm walking away. Like, I gotta cash in my chips, and actually something that I wanted to this doesn't deal with really game design at all, but I thought it was interesting, which is that like everybody wants to be Sonic, nobody wants to be Tails, right?
True story,
right? But it's kind of like one of those things that you don't really like say out loud. It's like saying like so and so is a poor man, so and so. Like
that's rough.
Yeah. They assign a monetary value to Sonic and Tails. So you can literally say in coin ring value how much better Sonic is within the game. Like the game says like, oh, well, if a Sonic is worth 50 coins and a Tails is worth 10 coins. So take that. Like that's awful, man. Like,
yeah. He doesn't even get special animations if you get all the Chaos Emeralds as Tails.
Yeah,
like when he becomes Super Tails, he's just Tails.
Yeah, he's just. Yeah,
they just couldn't even be bothered. And It's like it's not like he's an old forgotten character. Like this was his introductory game.
Yes. Yeah. No. Like this was like it was like Sonic and Tails, and you're like, oh my goodness, Tails. Which, by the way, I was of a age older than I would like to admit before I got the
Tails Prower
thing. Yeah, I was seeking higher education before I got that pun. Somebody's like, "Oh yeah, miles per hour," like miles per hour, and I was like, and I remember at the time being like, "Don't
let him know.
Don't let him know. Nobody knows."
No, I suspect that there will be a lot of times throughout this series that we're like, oh, it's like watching Animaniacs with my 3-year-old. There's jokes where I'm like, I remember recognizing that was a thing that people thought was funny when I was like 9, but now as a post 30-year-old, I'm like, how did my parents allow me to watch this? And then I kind of looked down at my kid watching it, and I'm like, oh, it's actually really easy.
Yeah. Yeah, because because things like that, if it's well crafted enough, it will just fly right over their head. I mean, especially I think that Crystal Gems does a great job of like stuff like that, where it's just kind of like, well, fusion sex, but they have no frame of reference for sex, so it's just gem fusion, but it's sex,
Probably.
But
although I have more to debate with you on that, separate from this, because I have more evidence on my side that maybe it's not sex, although it definitely seems like it is. So my thing with Tails, talking about like game design, is he's not really there to help you, except in these incredibly specific circumstances. A lot of the time, especially if you are timid, like if you hesitate a little, there's a really good chance that Tails is going to inadvertently or maybe advertently murder you.
Absolutely. I think it's on purpose. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, like, I remember,
because he knows he's only worth a fifth of Sonic, and he's like, only one of us is immortal, rich man.
Well, and to be fair, like, I think the Tails death to Sonic death ratio hits about that, because one of the things that I said offhand, because I'm a terrible person, was is that, like, so when I play games, especially when we go back and play older games, I like to like come up with like fun like little headcanons to just make it more entertaining. And basically I was like, okay, so in my mind, every time Tails died, it was his son that like now accompanies me on the journey, And so I was like, I've gone through like 50 Tails, like, and like
generations of Tails.
Exactly. So I was like, so I am just the Sonic. Like I always have been and always will be, like, so
it sounds like there's it's partially making me think of like a sci-fi novel I can't think of the name of, and that Doctor Who episode with like the clones who like they think they've been at war their entire lives, but what you as the viewer don't know is that their entire lives are like hours because they die so fast during the war.
Yeah,
so
and it's like
that,
there's like a week.
Yeah, before Tails like sends his son out to aid Sonic, he's like this legendary godlike figure. It's like we for generations we have been aiding the Sonic in his battle against the Eggman.
Yes, and it's just like this like huge thing, and then and then the fact that Sonic can turn into like Super Sonic. It's like I remember my great grandfather told me tales of one time when the Sonic turned bright gold, but we have not seen it for generations, and it was like one level ago. Like.
I just didn't play that level very well, and Tails has died and died and died.
Just over and over again. So, like, the one time when I was like, run, and I, like, hit the edge, I was like, wait, stop. And Tails was like, hey, I'm taking this bus, and, like, jumped on the platform, and the platform, like, moved with him. I was like, goodbye, son. Like, like,
there's nothing I can do now.
Yeah, I just, like, watched my death, like, happen. I was like, this is the end of my story.
Well, and he's almost always facing you, so like he jumps on the thing and then turns back at you and gives you like the 1994 version of the Luigi death stare, and he's just like
yeah, and then he dies because he like goes off camera, right? But so it's like definitely like a suicide one. It's just kind of like no, I'm gonna go down, and so again my headcanon head, right? So that Tails knew that the Sonic was evil, like that the Sonic was killing Tails, and he's like, this will end my life, but I will end the Sonic. But then he doesn't know that Sonic has like an extra guy, so so it's ultimately meaningless anyways.
So I can't remember at what specific point he was frustratingly murdering me by accident, but Susan, again, like kind of was like, wow, because I'm complaining about him murdering me. And she was like, AI's come a long way in like secondary characters. And because I've been playing this game most of my life, I just sort of flippantly was like, oh no, he doesn't have any AI. He just does exactly what you do, but like half a second later. So like you jump, he jumps, you run, he runs, you go left, he goes left. And she was just like, wait, what? And I was like, wait, what? Why does he just do exactly what you do, but half a second later? Like, how many instances could this possibly be useful in? And I think you actually encountered like the only one I was able to think of, which is with the grabby spider thing.
Yeah. Yeah, we're basically like the spider dude like came down and like grabbed me because I jumped, Tail jumped that half second later and like wiped out the spider dude. But yeah, that was like the only time when, Tails was like useful. I think from a game design point, like the main thing is that he gave your friends something to do while you Sonicked about,
Well,
but,
in the bonus stages, so if you play the game, you can choose to play as Sonic and Tails, which is the default, Sonic, or just Tails. And I mean, to be fair, Tails performs exactly like Sonic. I think he even has the same size hitbox. Like, I mean, they are functionally identical. They're just visually different. And it wasn't until Sonic 3 that they added in where you could actually fly like manually. So they're the same.
Right.
But in the special zone, and this is just another way that they friggin' screw with you, and it's more like an old school arcade game than like a modern game we think of now, is those spots where the bombs are coming, like you can see them. You don't have to jump over the bombs. You have to jump over the bombs with enough leeway that Tails will jump over the bombs. So in the spots, especially in like the 6th and 7th special zone, where you have to memorize that the bombs are coming, you also have to memorize when to jump early enough that Tails will also not hit the bombs.
Yes. Yes. And that is insanely obnoxious. And then you sit down and you take a deep breath and you say, I can think of a million better things to do with my brain capacity than have this memorized. And yet here I am memorizing because like you want to win. I mean, obviously, But yeah, like with stuff like that where I'm just kind of like, oh, right, I have to remember thing A. Also, I should probably remember to go to the grocery store later today and like all this other stuff, like wait, when's my son's birthday again? Like it's like, but I remember where those bombs are, right? Yeah, no, that's literally why. Your description of the bonus stages is why I'm very happy with my decision making of like just calling it on stage 1, being like, no, this is ain't gonna be my jam.
Well, so I know you gave up on the bonus stages, but you didn't beat the game?
No, I did not. I got the rage quitting moment, and I was like, I think I think I've got enough information. And actually, one thing I do definitely want to touch on that I thought was something I didn't notice that would be so insanely frustrating, but like having just played Mario, I was like, this is handled very differently, which is, like you said, like when you're underwater, you can drown, right? Which you can't as Mario. And that's fine. But what you can do in Mario that I didn't realize was so important is you swim. Sonic does not swim.
No.
Sonic runs like a jerk underwater. Yeah.
No, the water sections of Sonic games are to remind you that even God can bleed, because it's like gotta go fast. What if you couldn't go fast?
Yes.
You're like, I don't know what I would do. What if you couldn't go fast and also you were about to die? It's like, I really don't know what I would do.
No, it's she broke your throne, she cut your hair, like it's that very like the kryptonite like stuff, but. No, because like I got frustrated because it's like moving around inside of a giant fat kid, and like you just
maybe
can't.
Would have gone with like molasses or something.
Sure, whatever. I mean, whatever, man. Don't, whatever floats your boat. But anyways, but yeah. So like I remember I was underwater, and it was in the whatever treetops stage. I forget.
Yeah, that one. The one with like the Aztec-y kind of music.
Yeah. Where those arrows fly out of basically nowhere the first time until
they
like all
come out of the pillars.
They do come out of the pillars, but first time I'm like, that's a weird Dr. Eggman face. I wonder if I can like jump on it or interact with it in some way. And I got an arrow in between my eyes, and I was like, oh right, that's right, those things shoot arrows.
What did you learn?
Yeah, no, but I was like definitely like in my mind like closely inspecting it, and it just hit me in the face. It was in that level where basically like a pillar dropped down, right? So, and I'm underwater, and luckily there's a bubble area right before it. Otherwise I would have just died. But so now there's like an area about the size of your hitbox that you have to jump through. And that took me more time than I would like to admit to actually get through, because I kept jumping, but being right next to it, you couldn't get enough momentum to jump through. So you would jump like straight up. Right. So then I'm like, okay, I'm going to back up a little bit.
Then you feel like a jackass because you just go, whoop. and then in
Yeah.
place.
Exactly. So I did that 3 or 4 times. And then, of course, every, 2 or 3 times I tried, I had to stop and wait. So that way I didn't miss the life-giving bubble that is going, So I was just kind of like, yeah, no, the actual ability to redirect yourself completely while swimming that you can in Mario by hitting A, and then that changes your trajectory by swimming. I'm like, I didn't know how important that was to me until this very moment.
Yeah, I mean, they could have maybe found other way, like a debuff. So it's like instead of the speed shoes, you get the slow shoes, and like you're debuffed for a while to rob you of the thing that essentially makes Sonic Sonic. But instead, they had to pair it with a brutal, suffocating death.
As you do. But yeah, no, I thought that was a very interesting, different way in a platformer to handle the swimming mechanics. I'm interested to see how some other non-iconic games handle that.
So before I talk to you about the end part that you didn't make it to, I do have to say this one thing. And I think I may have told you this story, but when I was a kid, my birthday was coming up, and my parents, I came from a middle-class family. It's not like they showered down gifts on me, but they were like, what do you want for your birthday? And Sonic 3D Blast had just come out. And I was like, it was because I never had a Sega CD, so this was like a 3D. And I mean, the Sonic CD was 2D anyway, but I was like, this was like man. Like it was Sonic, right, but in 3 dimensions.
A whole extra dimension.
Yeah, and it was isometric, which was weird. But anyway, so I was like, that's what I want. So like we went to the store and we bought it, and then we came home. And they like they were going to like leave me alone to just like, indulge in my hedonistic pleasure. And I have this crystal clear memory of going back to my mother like 45 minutes later in tears, holding the game because on my first attempt, I had beat the entire game with all of the Chaos Emeralds without dying.
Whoa.
Yeah. It was just, and it's not like I'm not this like amazing like god of video games. It's just that game was awful. And because they added in that extra dimension, they just like dialed the difficulty down so far as to make it like a young child's game, like a toddler's video game.
Right. Yeah. Like Emily would be able to beat that game.
Yeah. So playing Sonic 2 and going into the special stages, I was like, oh dear God, this is the height of Sonic in 3D. Like I know Sonic Adventure that came out later was like, it was fine, but like those bonus stages with the cheating bombs that come out of nowhere and like the stupid thumbs down if you screw up by even a single ring, like that's the best 3D Sonic ever got.
Yep. And then it just kind of kept circling the drain. And then, in true throwing good money after bad fashion, it's like, so like Sonic's circling the drain. And so like Tails goes in to save him, but then like Tails starts to struggle. So they're like, Knuckles, so then like they throw Knuckles in there and like, no, they're still drowning. Throw in Shadow. What? I don't know. Just keep more characters,
He looks just like Sonic. Give him a gun. Then people can tell him apart.
Yeah, that's something that I think every childhood video game needs is a character with a gun,
Yeah, a beloved childhood character who also has like a Glock.
Hey man, like how's Sonic going to protect himself, from it? I mean, to be fair, how many times does he have to fight Eggman now? And maybe now at this point he's just kind of like, yeah, you know what? I bet a bullet settles this situation a lot more permanently.
I'm going to stop jumping on you and I'm going to start shooting at you. We'll see how many more animals you put in robots, you freak.
But yeah, so the ending that I certainly did not get to.
The last stage, like literally the final boss fight, which is nothing but that. So like there is no last stage. It's just you fight Metal Sonic and then you fight Dr. Eggman, Robotnik, in his big Robotnik suit. And the Robotnik fight is pretty hard because it's one of the few times in the game where there are things that seem to be in the background and foreground, but they're absolutely on the plane that will kill you, except for like this half an instant where they won't. So so that fight is like, if you push it and you want to hit him as many times as you can, as fast as you can, then you risk dying if you miss this thing by like a single pixel and like his finger touches you. or it's just super tedious because you have to like shoot back and forth. But here's the thing. You mentioned the difficulty curve feeling like it's a little off. The last stage, oh God, it has like a funny name. Eggman Zone, whatever. There are no rings in it.
Yeah, I remember that. Like,
so the entire game, they've been teaching you like, hey, if you get hit, grab some rings because that's like your lifeblood. And then they throw you into this situation where they're like, here are the two hardest fights in the game. And also no mistakes will be tolerated. Like
right.
Perfection only. And it's like, you haven't really been preparing me for this.
And then on top of all of that, and this I remember too, and this is also too, like when I was like unable to get to the point, like get to those last levels, I was like, man, even back when like I had my platforming skills honed, and I haven't like wasted all this brain space with like loved ones and, professional information. Like I remember struggling to beat the game, and I'm not sure if I ever beat it without my trusty game genie, But yeah, no, I remember that. And like, basically, yeah, it's like you said, so you work hard, you get all the way there. It's like, you have to do this perfectly. Some of it has to be memorized because you have to like learn, like what the, repetition is.
It's straight up like Mega Man. It's just straight up pattern recognition.
Right. So, and if you screw it up, then you have to start all over again and get through everything. And it was definitely like back in the day where it was, like, oh, well, this was the one game that you had. But that is definitely not difficult. It is punishing, because it's like, man, I really want to like do this part that I failed at. I want to try that again. But now I have to like do all this other stuff, and you have to do well enough because, you don't want to get there with 0 lives left, so yeah, it's hard pass on all that.
So then I guess that brings me to my final question of, although you clearly did not get as much enjoyment out of it as I did, do you feel like it at least held up to your memories of it?
I think it was in keeping with my memories of it. I would say that it was it was definitely, like, thinking back on it, yeah, it is the way I remember it. And I remember enjoying it a lot more when I was younger, just because like also you had like didn't have as many things to compare it to. And, it was and I would definitely say it's very in keeping with games of the time, So yeah, no, I would definitely say it holds up to the way I remember it. But if you need to actually, I would recommend before you go back and play Sonic 2, sit down and really think about the last time you played it, not the emotion associated with it, but the actual like gameplay experience, because I think that is accurate. But yeah, no, if you said to me like, oh, well, what do you think? It's like, oh man, I remember loving playing that game. And this last time I played it, I was like, oh man, I would just love to rip my eyeballs out. It wasn't that bad. It was enjoyable, but there were definitely some points where I was like, what about you?
So to someone who's never played it, like, would you say it's unplayable without nostalgia goggles?
I would say that their time would be better spent playing many other different games.
Right.
So yes, I wouldn't. I would say that it's worth a play, But if somebody's like, oh yeah, man, I'm thinking about a game I want to kick back and play for the weekend. Like, what would you recommend? I'd be like, oh man, you got to check out The Last of Us. You got to check out like all of these great games that have like strong narratives or really interesting mechanics or all this. It's like, what about Sonic and Tails? It's like, yeah,
you played as a kid.
Yeah, you could do that. So yeah, I'd say that nostalgia. I don't think it's like required. Like, it's not on your driver's license. You have to wear the nostalgia goggles in order to drive. But I think that you should. Like,
they help.
It's like 20/50 vision.
Yeah, if you're responsible, you should probably have them on. I mean, obviously it held up for me, right? So yeah. I'm not nearly as good at it as I used to be, and I remember. I mean, I threw some serious, like, the game is cheating tantrums as a kid, but there were a couple times where, like, I could feel that emotion welling up in me, and then I was just like, I'm gonna go do something else. It's just like, because as an adult, like, that's more of an option. I mean, obviously, as a kid, you can do that, but at the time, specifically at the time that we had a Sega in my house, it was hooked up to the TV in the living room. So it was like, and there's a game without a save function. So it's like, to get up and walk away from this is to admit that I'm going to start over the next time I come back.
And then there's, of course, the constant thing that I have gotten into arguments with Megan about, and I'm sure you've gotten into arguments with Sue about, which is then the game has beaten you. And that makes it way worse. Like I'd much rather waste more of my time, which is really the game beating me, than like have to like admit that I have been bested by this, thing. So it's like, no, I just, and then you run into the gambling situation where you're like, no, if I can just beat this level, then that'll be good enough. And then like, you beat the level and you're like, well, that actually ended kind of fun. Just a little bit more. And then, you're like,
no, that was how I ultimately was able to get Supersonic, is because, and that was when I was flipping out to Susan about having to memorize where all the bombs were, is it basically became, and I didn't say this out loud, but I think what was going on in the back of my brain was like, was your 12-year-old self really able to remember something that your 31-year-old self can't do? Are you that stupid? And it's just like, no, that's not what this is. It's not that simple. You're being too reductive. Oh God, I'm attempting the level again.
Yeah, no, I'm picturing the actually like that inner monologue. Like if they were to shoot that scene, it would just be like you and then like your 12-year-old self like sitting next to you. Like being like, I can't believe, look at what you've become, man. You said you'd never give up on this game, Like,
how did you let me turn into you?
Oh my God. Like in your nice house with your nice family, it's just kind of like, I cannot believe you let this skill set rust, like a sword in its scabbard, just completely born dull from misuse.
Call your boss and tell him you cannot come to work until you have gotten these memorized again.
So yeah, overall, I think I'm saying that you should have nostalgia goggles, and you're saying that, not really.
I'm saying, I mean, mine are just so thick. I don't think I can see through them. But I would recommend it to someone who enjoys a classic, challenging platformer. And because someone who's just like, oh man, I just want to play like an old school platformer, I'd be like Super Mario World, no question. But it's kind of like someone who says like, oh, I really loved Mega Man. I would say play Mega Man X, which we'll probably play eventually. But like play Mega Man X, because like that one was a little bit further along in the chain, and it had some things that made it less like hair ripping out, like mind-blowingly frustrating. Someone who says like, I want to play an old hard Nintendo platformer, then I would be like, play the original Mega Man, because by the time you're halfway through it, you'll either be like, oh my God, I'm so good at this, or oh my God, I want to kill myself. What was I thinking? And Sonic 2 is like, it's in between those things. Like someone who never played it, I'd be like, if you like challenging platformers, it's fun. If you don't like challenging platformers, probably skip this.
Yeah. I would definitely say it is challenging and it is punishing at points. But it's not like it's not Battletoads. I mean, it's not.
Oh God, no. So I'm going to cheat and add a half star to our rating system and say it is best enjoyed with a nostalgia monocle.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, no, I like that. Yeah, I would agree.
Cool. You got any? I know we haven't talked about what we're going to play next. You got any loose thoughts rattling around in there?
So, a mutual friend of ours recommended that we try The Wizard of Oz for the SNES, which because I was talking to her and she said like, well, if you want a terrible game, here is a terrible game. And I was like, well, it must not be great because I didn't know that The Wizard of Oz had a game associated with it.
Dude, Michael Jackson had a video game.
Oh, I know, right? And I've actually seen some of that, and I was just kind of like, that is exactly what I mean. Like you don't know which room is going to be yours until you go into it, and then you realize it couldn't be any other. Like I saw that game, and I was like, yep, that's the only thing that game could have been. But no, I'd be interested to give that a shot. It definitely is more unknown in that I certainly didn't know about it, and probably therefore much more representative of the time and also of like shovelware,
Oh yes, yeah.
I'm pretty sure that
definitely
like,
cash-in marketing. Well, yeah. No, I take it back. Cash-in marketing, like cash grabs are when the game comes out near the time of the movie. The Wizard of Oz came out in what, the 30s, 40s?
But yeah, I think that it's not like a cash grab so much as it was like, this definitely seems like the E.T. video game for like Atari, where they were just kind of like,
see, but that at least was like at the same time though. You know what this smacks of? This smacks of whoever owned the rights to that movie were like, video games seem like they're a thing. What licenses do we have?
Yeah, no, absolutely. So anyways, I think that would be an interesting one to take a swing at. So
yeah, I mean, it'll be interesting to approach something with what I've affectionately started referring to as nostalgia goggles, where like neither of us have any fond memories of it because we either never played it or we never heard of it. The only thing that sucks about that adorable little term is in writing, it's spelled the same way. So maybe a hyphen or something.
Like capital N, capital O, or NO dash.
Yeah, something. We'll figure it out.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah. I trust in your abilities.
Yeah. See you in a couple of weeks.
The curtain falls, the music plays, the credits roll, then it all fades to black, and you're left by yourself. The fanfare is gone, there's no player two there by your side to share victories won. But as you slowly progress down the hall to your bed, a few great events leak back into your head from the time that you spent traversing the land, battling evil, fighting the darkness, just sword in hand. Your memories creeping with the edge of a smile. You realize again